So today I want to set up some cardboard at the front of the machine, and that way I'll be able to put some marks on the cardboard and locate where I want to have the top of the front shocks mounted. So that's what the cardboard is there for. And I want to build it so that it looks kind of like what I did in the back, you know, with the bent tubing. It won't be exactly the same because the shock mount angle is not going to be exactly the same as it was in the back. But that's what the cardboard is going to be for. And I'll show you what I'm doing right now. So you can see I got a 2x4 laying across the top there, and I'm just using that to locate where I'm putting these temporary tabs. So I'm just using the 2x4 just to kind of get it straight on there. And these tabs are actually just so I can clamp on some cardboard, and I'm going to get that done right now. So I've got a fairly large piece of cardboard bolted to those temporary tabs there that I welded to the frame. And then on the back side, I've got some more tabs. Those aren't welded on, but I just have those as like a washer just to help clamp that cardboard to the front tabs there. So I'll put some pressure on it just to keep it on there. A lot of this cardboard I think is going to get cut off yet. So this shock, I've got some space in it. That's about the amount that I want, because I'm leaving some for the bump stop. So I'm going to leave the shock just like that, and I have this space figured out that that's what I want right there. And now I'm going to take that shock and I'm going to swing it up and put a mark on the cardboard. That's going to be the first of my 2 marks. So this first mark that I'm going to make, really it's just I'm marking where I want to cut off the cardboard, because it's going to be in the way for the second mark. So in part 50 of this video series, I was showing you guys how I was carefully figuring out the bottomed out position of this front suspension, and that's the position that it's in now. This A-arm is propped up on a 2x4 at the length that I want, and that one is on a kind of like a telescopic post. And so it's bottomed out now, and so I've got the shocks also in a bottomed out position, also taking into account the bump stop. So that first mark that I've just made in the cardboard now, all that was just to put some clearance on that cardboard to get the shock in even a little bit tighter. So you can see the shock has a step in it right here where my thumb is. So I need to get that shock right up against that cardboard so that I can make the second mark, and that's actually going to be the shock bolt hole. That's actually where it's going to be mounted, somewhere along that stroke. So that shock does a pretty nice job of showing me where that line is supposed to be. I just stuck the marker through that eye hole. So now I'm going to extend the suspension and extend the shock, and then I'm going to sweep that shock on the cardboard again, and then there's going to be a little X intersect point, and that's exactly where I'm going to have that shock mount location. That's the plan anyways. So years back I played with hot rods and actually sold the Firebird, but what I found on those aftermarket shifters for vehicles like that is usually the geometry is incorrect. That's the first place where I started using this trick. And what I did is I would put the shifter in park, and then make sure that the cable nicely inserts into that bracket that's on the side of the transmission. And then what I would find is if I would put the shifter all the way to the other end of the scale and pull the pin out of that side bracket on the transmission, that the pin would not properly insert into that bracket anymore, and that's because the geometry is not correct from the factory on some of those shifters. So that's originally where I started using this trick. I took that bracket off the side of the transmission, welded the hole shut, put some tape on that bracket, and then put everything back together. And then like let's say the transmission and the shifter is in park, and then I would use a pen and using the cable as a guide, I would make a mark on that tape that I had just put on that bracket where the hole was welded shut. I would make a tape line, kind of like what I'm doing here, and then I would put the shifter and the transmission to the other end of the scale, and then I would make another mark and then it would make kind of like an X mark, and then I would carefully put a punch mark right there and then drill right in the middle of that X mark, and then I found that it would perfectly fix the geometry on that bracket. So that's where I started using this, and I figured, well, then it's probably going to work for shocks too, and it turns out it works pretty good. And there's probably a name for this technique. I don't know what you'd call it, but maybe somebody knows what you would call that, or if other guys do the same as what I'm doing, I don't know. Maybe the pros have a better way to do it. Okay, so I've got it extended here, and so back in part 50 I was talking about a 2x4 that I had under this tire here. I was kind of using it as a spacer. However, the weight of the assembly was actually on this here. So what I've done now is I've cut that long 2x4 down the amount of inches that I wanted to remove, so that sets my travel to where I want it, and I've got the tire lightly sitting on top of that spacer, but the weight is once again cut or sitting on top of this 2x4, and I had to cut that one down also to match. So I've got my shock extended also. I put some nitrogen in there, so it's extended all the way, and I'm also taking into account I had to leave a little bit extra for the limit strap, so that's factored in here also. So now you can see it wants to make a mark now in a different location, and once again this cardboard is kind of in the way because of the shape of the shock. So I'm going to just put a little notch into that cardboard for the shock, and then I'm going to make a second mark where the bolt is actually going to end up. So I've been using the cherry picker to raise and lower the suspension. That thing is so handy over the years. So now I've cut an additional 6 inches out of that 2x4 that I had under the tire. And right now the weight of this whole wheel and suspension is actually suspended by my cherry picker right here. And so by doing that, then I can put an additional mark on the cardboard here. So that one goes right there. And the one that I was working on earlier in the video is right here. So by moving the shock position from here to here adds 6 inches of travel to the machine in the front here. And I'm doing a similar thing in the back. So anyways guys, this is a step in the right direction as far as getting the front suspension assembled here. And a bit of a procedure to get all this cardboard set up, but like as you guys can tell already, I mean these marks have to be precise. And so this cardboard is pretty rigid on there. I don't think it's going to be going anywhere. So guys, appreciate you coming in and check it out.